In this video, I'm going to show you the simplest possible way to set up Retrieval-Augmented Generation, also known as RAG, to your AI agent. So let's jump right in. So right here in n8n, we have our RAG AI agent. And in this example, we are a Los Angeles commercial real estate broker, and we want to have a chatbot that is living on our website. And so what we've done here is we've trained our AI assistant on two key documents. So in this document, we have commercial real estate absorption trends and projections. And then in this document, we have a market report with emerging trends and recent news from earlier this year. And so we've downloaded and uploaded those files to our specific agent. And now we're going to be able to talk to this agent. So let me walk through this setup to show you how to do this on your end. So what we're using in this build out is a tool called backboard.io, which is widely renowned as the world's smartest AI memory. And we are bringing backboard.io into n8n. And the way that we're doing that is we're doing a few different steps, but it's all the same API call. So to get started with backboard.io, the first thing you're going to want to do is to create a brand new account and sign up. Once you sign up with your account, you can go straight over to the API documentation. The first thing you want to do is manage your API key and create a brand new API key. So I've already done that here. Once you create your API key, you can go straight to the documentation. And what we are going to do is select Quick Start, and we're going to use some of these API calls right here in our build out, right? So we're going to use the create assistant and then the create thread API requests. And so the first thing that we've done here is created a brand new AI assistant. And so we have the URL here that directly follows this documentation. So this is the base URL. And then we do -assistants to create a brand new assistant. And then we pass in the name of our assistant and a description of that assistant right here, which we've done. We pass in a name and then the description as well. So in this case, it's just a backboard assistant with memory, your helpful AI assistant with memory. Great. So we're going to create that. So we're going to use the assistant ID that this module will give us. So let's go ahead and run this module here. Boom. So we see that it runs and it gives us a brand new assistant. Then we're going to create a thread using this assistant ID. So now with this new API request to create a thread, we have an empty JSON body, and then we can go ahead and click execute step to see what this looks like. And boom, we have a thread ID. Now we're going to need that in just a second. But for now, we've created an assistant and we've created a brand new thread. Next, we actually have these documents passed into n8n, telling it to download these documents. So for this node to start off, what you're going to want to do is connect your Google Drive account. So you're going to want to create a brand new credential, and there are some OAuth authentication steps that you're going to want to follow. So what you do is you click Open Docs here, and you see this Google OAuth 2 single service. Now there are a few steps here to set up your online authentication with Google Drive or with any Google Cloud products. And so what you're going to want to do is click Google Cloud Console Project, enable APIs, and then configure your OAuth authentication consent screen. So there's a few simple steps. It takes just a couple minutes, and this documentation is really helpful in breaking down this process. So I will skip that for this video, but feel free to leave comments if you have questions about that. Once you connect your Google Drive account, you'll be able to see all of these options here. You can do plenty of operations from Google Drive. In this case, we're going to want to download the file. What the download operation is doing is it's looking at the specific file that we've specified. In this case, we've specified it based on our URL, which I've just copied from right here. I've just taken this URL and then copied it over here. And then we can select execute step. And so this looks at that particular file and it downloads it in binary format. And so the reason that's important is when we upload a file to our backboard AI assistant, it needs to be in binary format. And so we've downloaded the file. Great, that module ran successfully. Now what we're doing is we're setting up this step to upload a file specifically to the AI assistant that we just created. And so the first thing I'm going to want to do when I'm configuring this module is I'm going to want to add the specific assistant ID. Now, how did I know to do that? What I did is I came over here, selected assistants, and then I'm clicking upload document to assistant because that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So what I've done is I've just followed this request where it has the base URL, we already know the base URL is, we have that right here, app.backboard.io. And then we have -API, -assistance. And then we have this long string, this alphanumeric string. This is our assistant ID. So we have this string, and then we have -documents. So let's go ahead and double check that here. We have -API, -assistance, something, our assistant ID, -documents. So what we need here is we need to go back and look at the create assistant module. And what that outputted for us, when we look at the create assistant module, it outputted the assistant ID. So what we can do with n8n, what makes this so easy to use, is we drag the assistant ID here, just like that. And so what that's doing is it's dynamically putting that assistant ID into this URL expression here. So that is all good to go. And the rest of this should be set up. We were already passing in specific parameters that this API is looking for. So we're asked to pass in content-type and specify that it's multi-part-form-data. And we have our API key that we're passing in as well. And then we can pass in the file in our JSON body, which we've done below. So looking at the send body, we turn that on, and then we pass in data. I've also passed in content, but I'm actually going to remove that content because, as you can see, it doesn't actually take in anything like that from the body. So let's remove that and then just pass in this file. So we're going to execute step, and there we go. We've passed in this file name. And so what that's doing is it's looking for a particular binary file named data. And that is exactly the output on this download file module. If you remember, this download file module outputted something, so a binary file called data. And so that was uploaded to the assistant. And now we can do the same thing for the second file. So for the second file, this file is the market report, emerging trends and recent news. We have pasted that URL already right here. Again, it's a download operation, and we're just going to go ahead and go for it. We're going to select execute step. We see that it's the market report. Oh, perfect. This is the market report. That is correct. And so it also is called data. We're going to also upload this document called data, but the thing we're going to do again is bring in our assistant ID. And so we're going to go back to create assistant and bring in that assistant ID to update this URL. So we don't have to manually type in anything. We can just drag that in. And again, we've passed in all the right parameters. We're going to remove that. We've passed in the parameter of a binary file named file with the specific data field name as data, and that's the name of the file once it goes through the download file module. So we're going to click execute step. Boom, it is done. And we see the output there. And so we've uploaded 2 separate files to our AI assistant. So as you can imagine, this assistant now has information from all of these different files. So really quickly, just to explain, what we've done here is we've passed in binary data to our AI assistant in the form of these files. So we read the text, but the AI assistant or the AI agent looks at it as ones and zeros. And so what this is doing is it's categorizing these ones and zeros as vectors. A vector is essentially a set of ones and zeros. And so what I'm going to do now in just a second is when I start chatting with this AI assistant, I'm passing in a chat input. That AI assistant is creating a vector, a binary vector of my input. So it's taking that my input and creating ones and zeros out of it. And then it's matching the ones and zeros that I passed with the binary vectors or the ones and zeros in the particular files that we have just added to this AI assistant. To make this simple, to pass in something like, oh, what are the office market trends in this last year? What it's doing, it's not looking at the text, it's looking at ones and zeros to figure out what is most similar so that it can grab the right information from this document. So I just thought that was important to share kind of how this works, is that it chunks data and then it finds of the prompt that you passed in which binary data is closest to the chunk that you passed in. And it retrieves only that information and processes that for your answer. So that's how you can pass in very, very long documents. You can pass in documents much longer than this, and it can still find the most relevant piece of information. Now we're going to want to test this chat functionality right here. And so we have this other call to our AI assistant to send a specific message. And so this message, what we have here is we are using the API for send message. And so that is right here in the quick start. Just so we have the right URL, we just need to add the thread ID, right? And so in this case, this ran on a separate line. So what we're going to need to do is check the output of this create thread module. And remember I said we're going to need that in just a second. What I'm going to do is paste in this thread ID here, and then we are good to go. We have the correct URL, and now just check the rest of the API to make sure that it is correct. So we have a post request here. And then we have some data that we can pass. The content is the content of our chat message. So when I put in something in chat, that is the content. And then we have stream is false and memory is auto. We can add other things as well, but let's just keep it simple for now. And then we have just the basic header of your API key. So hopefully that makes sense. What I'm doing here is I'm passing in a few more pieces of information, which is just the chat input. So what I put into the chat will get passed in dynamically here as chat input. And then we have the memory as auto. Let's go ahead and click save and open up chat to see how this works. So let's first think of a good question to ask. So I'll just say, what are the LA commercial real estate market trends? And so what it's doing right now is it's sending a message to a particular thread. In our case, that thread is associated with our assistant. And so that's why when we've uploaded the documents to our assistant, it has that knowledge already. And so it says the LA commercial real estate market trends as of March 2025 is characterized by several key factors. Stabilization, the market is stabilizing. Let's read it over here instead. The market is stabilizing with a moderate rental decline and office vacancy rates at 16.4. Let's go ahead and check that. There you go. Office vacancy rates stabilized at 16.4%. Sector specific trends. We have the office sector, industrial sector. So let's see what the office sector says. Office market faces structural challenges due to hybrid work models and entertainment industry contractions. Is that the case? Okay, so the office sector, structural headwinds based on hybrid work adoption and entertainment industry contractions. Perfect. Okay. Now, what are the projections? What does the industrial sector say? Let's check. What does the industrial sector say? There's downturn in industrial absorption marked by high vacancy and increased sublease availability. And so we see high vacancy and sublease availability. Okay, so as you can see, it's pulling information from this set of documents, and it's finding the most relevant pieces of context, putting it together, and giving it to us here. And so we can see this is a really high quality answer. And so that's really great that it's able to pull in our information properly, right? And so we can also customize this a little bit more by switching up the model that we're actually speaking to. So what's great about backboard.io is that it has persistent memory. What that means is I could use a different model, right? Based on this API docs, let me check here. What we can do when we send a message with a particular thread ID, which is what we're doing, we can call a particular model, right? We can call a different model. We can go over to their model library and check to use a different model. So let's say we want to use a newer model, right? Or something with a better context limit. In this case, we could use GPT 4.1. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say model-name GPT 4.1. As we can see previously, which model did we use? We used 4.0. So let's go ahead and execute. Try this again. We're using the same input question that we used just prior. And now we're going to see how it does with the new model. Great, and so we see that it gave an output. We'll check that output in just a sec. Oh, we see that it's still called 4.0. So let's go ahead and change this to model name and then GPT 4.1. And so let's go ahead and click execute. And so we're passing in the exact same chat input as prior. And now we're going to see it use the new model and see how that works. And so again, even though we're changing the models, this AI assistant has the same memory and the same context because we've uploaded those documents to a particular assistant. And so let's go ahead and see. Okay, and we see this has used the prior model, the model that we just specified. And let's see what the output looks like. Oh, we see it didn't pass into the chat. Let's go ahead and pass it in. So what we can do is just pass in this question again. And so now we're calling the new model just to see what the output looks like in this bigger window. So we already know it's going to call the new model successfully. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like here. Great. Okay, so we see that there's content, status completed. And so we see in the latest message, we see the model name as GPT 4.1. So it did update to the new model, and we can see how this is a little bit different. It's a little bit cleaner and less wordy than the old model. And obviously 4.1 has a much larger context window of 1 million versus 4.0, which has 10 times less of a context window. So if you want to pass in large questions, or if you have a ton of data that your AI assistant is looking through to provide the answer, then we want to increase that context limit so that it has enough tokens to check through all of our data to look at larger data sets before responding. So that's really great. And this is a much, much cleaner response. And so again, this agent, even though we've changed models, has the same memory base because it's associated with that assistant and with that thread. So now we have this RAG agent working in n8n. And what's so great about this build is you can connect this to any other user interface. You can put this on your website. You can put this on a Slack channel. You can use a Discord bot or a Telegram bot. You can have this respond to your email. You can do so many different things with this chatbot. For the simplicity of this video, we have just been messaging the chat window inside of n8n, but very, very easily, you can just come over here and type in Slack and connect this to Slack. And even if the connection is not in n8n, which is rare, you can use a webhook for custom integrations like that as well. So that is it for this video. Again, this is how to make a RAG agent using backboard.io. So I highly recommend you sign up, you create an account, and you get started and you follow these steps exactly, and then let me know how that goes. So that is it for this video, and I will see you all in the next one.